For the wrappers, the ingredients are a hot water dough, and it's not necessary to mix it with chopsticks. It is traditional. I happen to have some, so why not? You can use a spoon or a fork, no problem. So what I have is I've got the 2 cups of flour here, and I've got an extra half a cup on the side just for as needed. So what you do is you begin with the boiling water, and I've got a kettle that has just come to a boil. So you put in the 3/4 of a cup. There's a half and a quarter. Some people put salt in the dough. I don't. You can. I'd keep it light if I were you. Okay. And what you want to do is you want to just mix it up with the chopsticks or the fork or the spoon. Preferably not your fingers right now because it is boiling water, okay? And when you've got as much of that in as you can, that's when you get the cold water. Now, when I say cold, I mean cold. I've got a glass of water in the freezer right now, chilling up, because it is partially the temperature differential that helps to develop the dough for these and make them really nice and silky and easy to work with. There's the chilled water, and I'm just going to measure that over. Luckily that spilled outside of the bowl, and just pour that over and keep working it. Until you can get it to form a mass. Yeah. So, well, that's about as far as you can go with chopsticks. Then just kind of grab it a couple of times to try to pick up what you can. And you can feel it very soft already. Okay, so just put that out. I'll mop up that water not to confuse anything. And I'll get to the other side here. Not to block the shot, hopefully. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need some of that extra flour. This is a little too wet. Try to just sprinkle some out. I'm going to take a minute to get the dried bits off my hands. And we'll see where we are. It's a little sticky, so a bit more. So, when you've reached the point that it's nice and soft and it's not sticky, just clean up the counter a bit. You shouldn't need flour at this point. You don't want any dried bits getting back into the wrappers. Start rolling it out. You're going to be making 2 dozen dumplings. When it's about that long, just fold it around that way. So that's going to be 12. And then fold the other one And that's going to be 6. And do the same to the other piece. And what you want to do for now is just pull off the dough balls. You may have seen movies where people just pull off dumplings off the rope as they go. Those are people that do that for a living and know exactly how much they're going to need. I prefer it this way for the amateurs like me. So for this, I took a few sheets of paper towel, soaked them, wrung them out till they're just damp, and just cover that up for the time being. And get yourself a plate and your noodle stick and get to work. So making sure your hands are dry. And for this, yes, you do want a sprinkle of flour if your wrappers are a little too sticky. Yeah, give yourself some elbow room. And what you want to do is you want to turn it and roll it. Making round wrappers. Now you can just roll them this way as well. The nice part about doing it with the edge of the rolling pin, if you do have a noodle stick, and if not, you'll have to use traditional, which probably won't work like this with a big one with handles. But if you can get your hands on a noodle stick, which is what I have, the advantage of this is that it's slightly thicker in the middle than it is on the outside, which means your dumpling has a better overall quality, because when it's pleated up, the thickness of the dough is the same all the way around. Okay, so there's one. And yeah, I'm going to get a damp towel to cover this too, so they don't all dry out. So they're all done now. Now, one thing I was going to say, you should turn your stack over and get a second plate. Try to do these as fast as you can, because they are going to get extremely soft, and if you're not too quick about it, they may start to stick to each other. You can still usually salvage them, but what I would do now is get a second plate, fairly large one, and just pull them apart, because you're going to be putting them together now, and you don't want them all stuck together. Got all those separated and put on the piece of parchment that was on the cookie sheet. Now, some of you are asking yourselves, why didn't I just do this in the first place? The answer is really simple. If you spread them out too soon, they'll dry out too much and they'll crack. Now, I don't know if you've ever paid a lot of money at dim sum for these and been very disappointed when you got your dish and found out the wrappers were dry and had cracked, and all the soup was in the bottom of the dish and you didn't get the full enjoyment. So this will help to prevent that. Next thing to do is separate the filling. If you want these completely even, get yourself a plate and pour the filling out and separate it visually before you start. You can use a fork or a spoon, doesn't really matter, but eyeball it roughly. As long as you have your dozen separated, you don't have to do every dumpling, but you're going to be working basically in 6s at a time. For this, yeah, you're going to want a spoon. You can keep the fork to separate it, but I would get a spoon. Get some on a spoon and grab yourself a wrapper. Pop it down in the middle. If you read up on these things, you will find that yes, they're supposed to have 24 pleats. I would just get her done, okay? And if you got people that are concerned about how many pleats you've got, well, seriously, they've got food issues, okay? So what you want to do is you want to just, you can work with the other thumb, but if you're going to do this, keep a damp paper towel around, because what you're doing, and no, I'm not counting, what what you're doing is you're basically trying to get it all closed up without any wet on the outside. This is so important, okay? Because if you want that little joy when it steams, you've got to make sure that there's not a single opening at the top, all right? So that one's done. Now, if it looks like your filling's going to start melting on you halfway through, by all means, you know, get another smaller plate and put the rest back in the fridge, because the last thing you want to do is be nearing the end of this and see that you have soup on the plate. So I'll do another couple more for you. Yeah, so pleat and push down with your thumb while you turn. I'm right-handed, so I'm turning it clockwise. If you're left-handed, obviously do it counterclockwise, work with whatever's natural for you. Okay, and if you've done it right, you can see that the filling is kind of dropped down at the bottom. And the nice part about this sticky dough, that as long as you don't have any soup on it, yes, it will seal like a dream. Okay, and just keep going like that. I'm nearly halfway done. Now I thought I'd show you, so there's how that's coming along. I am using a little plate. Now, one pointer I forgot to mention is after you've laid these out like this, when you pick them up, don't turn them over. Because since they've been drying on one side and they're still wet on the other, you want this side, the wet side, to be the outside, because that way your pleats will stick for sure. Okay? Oh yeah, and a couple other pointers. Looking at this one, if one of your wrappers gets completely destroyed like this, what you can do is you can just roll it up quickly and re-roll it. No harm, no foul. Just keep your stick out and a little flour just in case, and it's good as new. Now, and another pointer is, as this stuff starts to heat up, okay, you may notice it smells insanely good. Resist the temptation to eat any of the raw filling, because it is raw pork after all. Just wait till you steam them. Alright, so they're all done. And make sure you do keep these separated on the parchment, because they are still damp and you don't want them sticking to each other. I'm just going to set these outside to chill for a couple of minutes while I get the steamer ready and the water boiling. Well, I got some water heating up. You can do this in a wok, or if you got a nice metal steaming set. I've just got some bamboo ones that happen to fit my favorite soup pot just to a T, which is great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do one layer to show you tonight, because the other layer is kind of wonky and I don't want it to fall over after all this work. So what you're going to do is first bring your water to a full boil, and make sure that you've got some Napa cabbage, because you will be steaming it in the cabbage. Do not use paper for this. So while the water is coming to a boil, I'm going to get my steamer tray ready. And what you're going to do is get your Napa, and you're only using this for a liner, so if you break off the first couple leaves on the outside that are kind of scungy, that's fine. I always do, because they're usually dirty or have bugs in them or whatever. You can rinse these off too, but they're only being used for steaming. So what you do is break off a leaf and cut off the first bit. Just the white, you just want the green part. 3 should probably do you per layer. Actually, I haven't turned these over yet. They look nicer that way. Now, don't worry about how the dumplings are going to turn out, because what you're going to do is you're going to steam these once it's at a full boil for a minute or two to soften them up so they sit flat. Once the water's at full boil, put your steaming tray together with the lid on top of the cabbage. Just pop that on and steam that for a minute or two. If you're feeling brave, yes, you can take the lid off and you know, put your dumplings in over boiling water. Personally, I prefer to take the steamer off the heat and do it on the side. Now I've got a really small steaming tray here, so I'm only putting in 6. If you've got a larger tray or you're feeling brave, you know, put in as many as you want. However, I caution you, don't put them in more closer than like an inch and a half, and make sure that the dough is firmly on a leaf. You do not want it sticking to bamboo. Even in the short time these have been out, they've already started sticking to the plate. And you don't want these to break until you're ready. Pop that in, back on top, full boil, for a timed 12 minutes. So the timer's gone off. Here's the moment of truth. Yes. Oh, and a couple of them are kind of close together, but can still be rescued. So what I'll do is I'll just take these off the heat right away and get my tongs and get them onto a plate. At this point, these are way too hot to eat, and you would let them cool down in a restaurant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these and put it in a bowl. So for those of you that have never even heard of these, you will see what the fuss has been all about. And you'll see why I'm using a bowl. So and there we have a soup dumpling. And I know you can't smell it, but yeah, it's really good. And what I did want you to see, for those of you that aren't familiar with these, is just how much soup is actually in the bottom. Okay, so try to imagine putting one of these things in your mouth and biting down on it and have all that incredible tasting soup fill your mouth while you eat this really good tasting dumpling. If you haven't had these, it's just really hard to describe, and if you have, I do hope you've enjoyed watching this, and thank you for your time, since I know it's going to be a really long video. But hopefully you've learned everything you need to know to go out and make your own. So thanks again, and hope to see you again. Bye.